So welcome back, everybody. I hope you've had a chance to network and start discussing some of the topics that we covered earlier on this afternoon. Certainly plenty of food for thought, both from what the Secretary of State said and Julian later on. RAP is an organisation that works through partnerships, and we place great value on those relationships. The views of the people we work with are very important to us, and we know that with financial constraints, it'll be even more important that we concentrate on the areas where we're best placed to operate and where we add most value. As I mentioned earlier, it's very important to me that we are transparent, open, and that we have two-way communication between all of us. And that's exactly why we're running this session now, to hear and respond to your feedback, to understand what you think where you think we can make a real difference. And we'll be here to take your questions and have that discussion for as long as you want us to be. There's a slight echo on this. Should I move it? I know there's a great deal of interest in where RAP will go from here, how the landscape will change with reduced budgets. We've got a new government in Westminster, upcoming elections in Scotland, a policy review, lots of other things going on. Before I open the floor to your questions, I'd like to just take a few minutes to review the work of RAP over the last year, talk about some of the challenges we've experienced, illustrate our way of working, and pick out some of the key highlights. The past year has been dominated by significant changes in both the political and economic landscape in which we work, and this continues to influence our work. However, against this backdrop of change and challenging economic conditions, initial indications show that we have already achieved the ambitious targets we set back in 2008 when we launched our current business plan. And that was to divert waste from landfill, cut carbon dioxide emissions, and generate economic growth. So to date, we have diverted over 8 million tonnes of waste from landfill. We've saved over 5 million tonnes of carbon dioxide equivalent. We've created over £1.1 million of cost savings for business, and we've generated over £193 million sales growth in the recycling sector. So by the end of March 2011, we will have exceeded these targets. And those are only the impacts that we measure. We also know that many other business benefits can be gained through improved resource efficiency. And I'd like to thank all of you here for the part you've played in making those achievements and managing to achieve those targets. So what has the impact been over the past year? For our annual report, we took the opportunity to stand back and illustrate our work against the timeline. I don't know how many of you have actually seen the annual report, but the impact was quite impressive, and with very real intervention across all the sectors in which we operate. I'd just like to pick out 4 examples from that report. First of all, we helped broker a new responsibility deal with the home improvement sector. And under the deal, Argos and Homebase have already announced that they will adopt a reusable bubble wrap bag to transport sofas in a bid to reduce the amount of packaging they use and to cut down product damage. The decision to adopt the sofa bag comes after several years of testing. Sofas are typically shipped around in around 3 kilograms of packaging, and the UK disposes of 15,000 tonnes of packaging every year from furniture. The benefits of the sofa bag are threefold: environmental, consumer convenience, and cost. The second example is we worked with the retailers to deliver a 25% cut in Easter egg packaging, following our coordination of the Seasonal Confectionery Industry Working Group. By 2009, retailers, brands and manufacturers had already achieved significant reductions in Easter egg packaging, with some eliminating over 50% of the materials used. Having intervened, RAP has now taken a back seat, and industry continues to build on the success of that initiative. Thirdly, we launched the waste collection commitment with the Local Government Association, to which over 100 local authorities have already signed up. One such authority is Solihull Metropolitan Borough Council, which received technical and communication support from RAP in order to help to develop a new waste and recycling service. By embedding the 10 principles of the waste collection commitment in all their activity, Solihull has been able to deliver a high-performing service with increased recycling rates and reduced residual collections. And finally, our research, commercial trials and financial modelling help to demonstrate the feasibility and viability of collecting, sorting and reprocessing mixed plastics. Having established the economic and environmental viability, we launched a capital grant competition and have since supported Wes Green Star, who will add a further 20,000 tonnes a year reprocessing capacity for this difficult waste stream. And that will come online early next year. WRAP's Mixed Plastics Loan Facility will provide further support for the industry, generating both economic benefits and green jobs. I believe that these 4 snapshots illustrate WRAP's core strengths, our expertise and our ability to bring people together to make real change. And this is part of the reason why WRAP is the lead delivery body in England for resource efficiency, and we've been chosen by the Scottish Government to lead Zero Waste Scotland. But they only touch on a small part of our work. It's hard to imagine that the halving waste to landfill construction commitment is only 2 years old. Signatories now stand at over 500 and represent over £25 billion of construction spend. However, it's one thing to get people to sign up, we've then got to get them to actually deliver. And the team has been busy developing tools and resources to help the signatories deliver the savings they've committed to and to help design out waste. Just recently, the industry unveiled a series of 5 action plans aimed at helping to improve sustainability within the sector and to reduce its waste. And this work was a result of collaboration between WRAP, DEFRA, industry and trade associations, and will have far-reaching benefits across the industry. And it's just that sort of collaborative partnership working that we need. Similarly, in the retail sector, we announced the results of Phase 1 of the Courtauld commitment. The results were really encouraging. Through working in partnership, the UK's grocery sector prevented 1.2 million tonnes of food and packaging waste from entering the waste stream. That's 670,000 tonnes of food waste and 520,000 tonnes of packaging across the UK between 2005 and 2009, against a backdrop of unexpected increases in grocery sales. And you can see some of the examples of the work behind me. This year, Courtauld moved on to a new phase. Signatories have pledged to cut the carbon impact of packaging, food waste and supply chain waste, committing to more sustainable use of resources over the life cycle of products and throughout the supply chain. We're already looking beyond Phase 2 to introduce even more challenging targets for the future. Just one example of how Courtauld is already taking shape is the award-winning Easy Serve project, which scooped the Best Innovation Prize at last week's Packaging Awards, as Julian mentioned earlier. A new partnership has also been established with the Food and Drink Federation to manage the Federation House commitment. This commitment has already delivered an impressive 5% reduction in water against a 20% target for 2020. And meanwhile, we launched 2 initiatives to help SMEs become more resource efficient through waste and water management. We anticipate that organisations will save up to £1,000 per employee and reduce their water bills by 30% by participating in these initiatives and taking action as a result. So 2010 has certainly been a year of results, with the impact of the Glass-Right Wine project also announced. And over the course of the programme, we engaged with over 80 project partners throughout the international wine supply chain. As a result, actions taken to reduce bottle weight, increase the use of recycled glass, and increase bulk importation will save almost 35,000 tonnes of carbon dioxide a year. As these examples demonstrate, working in partnership with others is absolutely critical to our delivery approach and will be fundamental to the way we work in future. In the final year of our business plan, the pace shows absolutely no signs of slowing. We've got a new government in Westminster to work with, and we're feeding into DEFRA's review of waste policies as part of their zero waste ambition. We're helping the governments in Wales, Scotland and Northern Ireland to achieve a step change in recycling and waste reduction. And we've got ambitious plans to develop a number of responsibility deals, building on the success of the Courtauld Agreement. All of these support shared UK aspirations to grow the green economy. And behind all of this, as I discussed earlier, RAP will be intimately affected by the outcome of the political and economic issues that the Westminster government is facing. The work to reduce the budget deficit and the impact of the spending review, the work to implement the idea of the big society and small government, and the role it wants organisations such as RAP, with its unique expertise, to play in all of this. Next year we'll see considerable change for RAP, but then, frankly, every year has seen great change for RAP. Change is something that I and everyone that works for RAP embraces. We've got considerable pride in what we see as the soul of the organisation, and that's something which will always underpin our work. So I'd now like to open the floor to any questions which Peter and I will take. Thank you. So, any questions? Yes.
Hello, Keith Freegard from Action Recycling. We've talked a bit today about measures of sustainability which consumers can understand, and some saying that things like carbon label were difficult to understand. And I wonder what RAP's view is going forward on what work they are doing to come up with some measures that actually consumers, rather than skilled people like in this room, can understand about how sustainable products are.
Well, I'm not sure whether RAP's the best. We can certainly facilitate discussions. I'm not sure whether we're the best people to know what consumers are going to find easy to understand. Frankly, I think the retailers probably are closer to the discussion with their consumers. They understand more what is going to be meaningful for consumers. But we're very happy to sort of try to facilitate that discussion. Yes, one at the back. Michael.
Hi, Michael Warhurst from Friends of the Earth. I was going to ask this in the previous section, but didn't have time. I saw an interesting talk a few weeks ago by someone from the Wuppertal Institute, and he was plotting the difference in cost for labour and materials for German manufacturing industry over recent years, and basically showed that these days material cost is actually a much higher percentage of their cost base than labour is. Yeah, if you invite in one of the big multinational business consultancies into your company, I bet that they will tell you all about how to cut labour cost and not how to cut resource costs. So has RAP thought of running an educational program for these big multinational consultancies in actually how industry can save costs?
That's a very interesting question. I mean, I think... no, we haven't. But I think that's exactly comes back to what I was saying earlier on about, you know, why is it that businesses aren't embracing resource efficiency as fast as we would like them to and think they should? You know, are they really understanding where their costs are, and then being able to focus on the right areas? I mean, it's an interesting thought, and I think we'll take it away and think about it as we go forward, thinking about how we work with businesses in the next business plan. Yes, one in the middle. Peter, next door to you.
John Woodruff, National Association of Waste Disposal Officers. You mentioned in passing in your presentation a mixed plastics plant in Birmingham. Do you have a feel for how long it will be before there's sufficient processing capacity for mixed plastics in this country for all local authority mixed plastic collections to actually be recycled?
That's a very tricky one. Where's Marcus?
It's really, I suppose it's a bit chicken and egg. People won't want to collect them until they know they can be reprocessed. Yeah. But people won't want to build reprocessing plant until they know that they're there and available to the quality. So that's why getting one in place as an example. I mean, the first work was to show that it was possible, it made sense economically, and it made sense environmentally. The next was to then support a plant to be built, and that's the one that's being built now. from that, we hope the same story that's happened with plastic bottles will happen. There'll be more infrastructure goes in, and it'll become more normal to do that.
Marcus, can you hold the microphone closer?
Sorry, everyone's missed all of that, have they? Right, let's start again. Why? Oh, right. What I was saying was that it's a bit of a chicken and egg situation. Until people have confidence that the recycling capacity is there to process the material, there's less confidence in collecting it. But there's not the confidence to build the capacity until people know that it's been collected. That's why we did the work, first of all, to show that it was technically feasible to do it, to show it made sense environmentally, and then supported a demonstration plant so people could actually see it happening. And from that, we hope the same story that's happened with plastic bottles will happen, where collections have increased and capacity is increasing for reprocessing them.
Thank you. Other questions? Yes, two at the back.
Question for Liz here, really. It's James Hurley from Masker Walcott and Low Carbon Southwest. I think there's been a lot of talk today about recycling, and I think RAP have definitely done an enormous amount to that extent, and I think you've quoted £193 million savings generated through recycling, and the capital grant competition as well. My question is, do you see any opportunity for capital grant competitions for smaller, medium enterprises rather than large organisations? I'm thinking of organisations like Sofa, the Nappy Collection, etc., where we can actually address and create a lot more jobs rather than just big recycling plant and equipment.
Well, I think that's... I'm just wondering why why I don't seem to be on a microphone. Can everyone hear me? Yes. That's all right then. I think actually it's a particular challenge, especially in the current budget climate, because there aren't going to be large amounts of money to hand out in capital grants. And anyway, I'm not entirely sure whether they are the right mechanism. We're looking at other ways in which we can help SMEs through lease guarantees, such as EQUIP, which we've been running for a while, through loan funds of various sorts. So I think it's trying to identify what is the actual barrier that's holding the business back, and then what's the right solution for it. We are giving it a lot of thought at the moment, but I'm not sure that just doling out dollops of cash is going to actually solve the problem.
Can I just add to that? It's also about the issue about reuse, which is higher up the waste hierarchy, but also the hidden three in between, which is reconditioning, remanufacturing, and remodelling, which the end-of-life vehicles and the WE directive has actually generated. This is what I'm interested in, how we can generate jobs around those three middle R's to actually get us to the reuse. That's where I think the challenge is.
Yeah, I agree. Simon.
Liz, you mentioned in your presentation that at the moment we consume 520 million tonnes of materials a year, and you want to get it down to 482 by 2020. About half of that is construction materials. 260 million tonnes, give or take, will go into some form of construction or other, and or industrial minerals. Obviously, if you stop building things, then you don't use that. But so, how have you identified what targets of reduction you have in that gross figure?
Well, I may need my technical expert at the back, who's actually responsible for the report, to help with the answer to that. But we've not assumed a massive recession that ends up with no construction going on. We've assumed sort of same levels of activity, but using less materials to do the same amount.
So Liz's understanding was completely right. In this research, what we did was we used exactly the same strategies as we used in the report that we published 12 months ago, where we identified a range of possible quick wins for reducing resource use and consequential greenhouse gas emissions. This time around, we've run exactly the same strategies and tried to identify how much material, how much water, and how much the ecological footprint could be reduced by exactly the same strategies. So they weren't focused on any one particular area.
Okay, thank you. I've got a question here that came in on Twitter, apparently. From the ARC project, I agree big business has the most to offset in terms of waste and resource use. What actual support is there for social enterprise? It's quite a tricky one. We have a programme of work which is trying to work with civil society, third sector, with other organisations to help them to actually grow and develop and play as much of a part as they can do. And so, I mean, I think that work will continue going forward. So that would be my answer to that question. Question at the back.
Liz, thank you very much. It's been really interesting coming through attending and listening about recycling. And I think it's very important really for the whole world and for the environment. The question I have is this. Now, you know, the waste paper cost here in the UK of OCC, which is open cardboard cartons, is around £50 a ton. This is packaged, this is like per bale, right? The same material is sold to countries like India, to China, at $250 plus, right? We are actually shipping, we are shipping thousands of tons to those countries, and they're able to recycle that and also make profit after paying the cost of $250 per ton. I feel, you know, every local authority really can put a little recycling plant within each borough or, you know, within certain area within England, and can recycle rather than creating this huge carbon footprint of recycled paper. So I don't know why it's not being done. And that honestly, believe me, I think that'll create thousands of jobs in recycling. So if we recycle our own paper. So that is really the question.
Paper is a globally traded commodity, and one of the issues is that we actually import a lot of products that is packaged in material that, you know, we've exported our paper overseas, they've turned it into cardboard packaging, and then we buy the products which then go around that packaging, around those products, and we get them back. So it is a globally traded product. David's in the audience. I don't know if you want to add to the answer on that.
Not really. I think that there's obviously a huge potential in the UK to increase the amount of paper that we actually recycle here, rather than sending it abroad. But I think on a bigger scale, I mean, we actually consume about 12.5 million tonnes of paper in the UK each year. We only make about 4.5 in the UK. And that's largely because we've offshored most of our manufacturing. And I think there's a big danger, and it goes back to the point I made in my original question about closed-loop recycling, because the downstream benefit of that, of course, is energy saving and CO2 saving. And with the costs of both energy and CO2 are likely to rise significantly. Unless we can encourage that closed-loop recycling, we're going to find that costs in the UK are going to rise very fast, and therefore it does put a question mark over the future, not just of paper, but of other material manufacture in the UK. If that happens, of course, what it means is the only markets you've got for waste are going to be abroad, and that's going to create a whole set of different issues.
There's one right at the back.
Simon Ellin from the Recycling Association. Where do RAP now stand on the commingled versus source-separated curbside collection conundrum?
I think you know, we are on a journey to, you know, from doing no recycling to making much better use of resources, and there are improvements going on all the time in sorting technologies, which is fantastic, because regardless of what anybody thinks, MRFs are going to have a part to play. So we need to have. I think there's always going to be a mixture of the different approaches. There isn't a single solution that fits everything. As Secretary of State said earlier, you know, it's not going to be possible to have curbside sort everywhere, and for some locations, commingling is going to be best. I think we would favour a two-stream commingle to make sure that you keep certain things separate, but I don't think we're trying to dictate one thing or the other. What actually is the most important thing is that we get the right quality at the end of the day. And, you know, if technology can move on and ensure that quality can be produced from a fully commingled, brilliant. But at the moment, I think we're still feeling around the two-stream commingled. This one in the middle.
Hugh Baker, Community Composting Network. My question is nothing to do with composting. Following on from your last comment and comments made by the Secretary of State, as far as the problem of plastics being able to recycle plastics in the domestic environment, Secretary of State said we've got to make it easy to do it. Liz, yourself said your partner has a problem because you don't know where to put it. I totally agree. The problem seems to be there are sort of about 3 different systems of sort of attempting to explain to the householder what plastic it is. Some authorities some areas you talk about the name of the plastic, it's a milk bottle. Someone else might talk about it as PET or the name of the plastic. And the third one, there's numbers in a little ring stamped on the bottle. Probably we need all 3, but it seems like you get a horrible mixture and mess at the moment. If we had all 3, at least then when, for instance, the food retailers change to a plastic that can be recycled, the number or the label of it would be there and we'd be able to get on with it.
We do run with the British Retail Consortium an on-pack labelling scheme, and so as materials become recyclable, they actually appear on the label says this is now readily recycled. So there are some plastics at the moment which say they're not currently recycled, and they will move to that recyclable status once we get more infrastructure in place. I completely agree. It's fundamental that we get good communication with householders about what they can recycle and what they can't recycle. It's very confusing for people. Richard, is there anything you want to add?
No, I just think that just to emphasise the on-pack labelling scheme is to try and make things as simple as possible in response really to your question, which is that how to try and reduce the complexity around this. One of the great things about it is that it actually relates to the infrastructure that you face at the household. So to get for widely recycled, you have to have the infrastructure in place. For 65% of local authorities have that coverage. So it does relate to UK conditions and therefore does supply information beyond the sort of the triangle with the number in, which you've actually got to try and work out by going on the internet to try and work it out. It tells you very directly what the chances are that you'll be able to recycle this at the curbside. And it's also an instrument in trying to encourage, as Liz has already said, as the recycling structure improves, the labelling can change and to follow up to that.
A couple of questions further back.
Hi, Jules Kirby from Friends of the Earth. Just given that the current rate of municipal waste recycling is now about 40%, just a scratch under, and England's target is still 50% for 2020, wondering whether you think that that's challenging enough for us, or if not, what sort of ambition, perhaps if we don't call it a target, but direction of travel and goal we ought to be aiming for 2020.
Well, I think 50% still seems very, very ambitious, and we're still going to need to do a lot more than we currently do. So, we're going to need to, if you actually look at analysing the waste in the bin, what are you going to have to get out to get to 50%? You're going to need quite a lot of food coming out of it. So, there's still a long way to go. So I wouldn't say that 50% looks easy at the moment. There was another hand, I think.
Hi Liz, my name is Aid Thomas from Green TV. You mentioned in a previous statement the need for the importance of communications. With the current administration there's been lots of sort of knee-jerk response to the idea of slashing communications budgets. Obviously this is a very key element to your work, gaining consumer confidence, making that paradigm shift. Is there any sense in which RAP will reduce its level of communications activity?
I think we will reduce our level of communications spend, but we will be looking at different ways of communicating, so different ways of engaging people, working through our partners. all the retailers, lots of people we work with, local authorities, have lots of interaction with householders and with consumers. So we don't need to be directly trying to communicate with those people. We can work through partners, give them messages, and that's how communication will happen. Nick, you've been doing a lot of thinking on this. I don't know if you want to add.
Yes, I mean, that is our approach. It's very much not about activity, it's about what we can achieve through it, and I think there's a couple of points on that. I think, first of all, quite a lot of the heavyweight spend early on was about awareness, and all of the trackers that we do show that there are high levels of awareness, certainly in relation to the environmental benefits of recycling, for example. When you get to awareness that that is a good thing at 93%, then it doesn't really justify heavyweight TV advertisings around awareness. I think what I would say about RAP's communications activity is that what I've heard today is, as no surprise, it's about helping people do what they want to do and making it easy. It's absolutely not persuading people, it's about helping people, and that's about engagement and giving people the information that they need. And I don't think that's just about RAP, that's about working with partners. We don't always have the right channels in. What we do know is, from our tracking, is that quite a lot of the information, the valuable information that people get when they want to understand how they can reduce waste and how they can recycle more, they get locally, and that means working with local networks as much as we possibly can. So I think the answer is communications, and I would say this, wouldn't I, but communications and engagement absolutely fundamental in our new business plan, but smart ways of doing that at best value and making sure it's effective, I think.
Can I perhaps add a comment on this? I've myself seen a broadsheet with a whole stream of individual activities that we've been studying. There are lots of clever ways you can adjust your program, do things a different way, reduce the spending, get the impact another way, consolidate things, persuade somebody else to do it instead of us. So we've done a lot of that. We've had a lot of that in train already. I'm sure that'll have to go on. But our business is very much behaviour change. We do need to communicate, so we've got to keep clever on that without offending our funders.
Any other questions? Yes, one there.
Ed Brown from Davis Langdon. I'm rather nervously one of those consultants that advises on efficiency and labour, but you know we're all about materials. We are. We're one of the kind of we're a global construction consultancy. We haven't talked an awful lot about the economy today, and I think particularly in terms of the built environment, that sector is on its knees, and there are organisations going pop day by day. And I think that's a challenge given the rate of change and the speed of change that we need to see in terms of resource efficiency. So I wonder how RAP are blending these two issues, where organisations are struggling to invest in terms of knowledge and change, yet RAP, in terms of carbon and resource efficiency, needs to see an accelerated rate of change. So I think there's a struggle between those two.
I agree, and that again comes back to the earlier comment that actually being more resource efficient and more sustainable actually should make organisations stronger to come out of the recession. So you know, it's a very difficult message because it's about invest to actually protect your company for the longer term. So it's fundamental. Yes.
Hello. My name is Ron Crisp, and I'm from the Lancashire Home Composting Initiative, and my question is about composting. And it's really about that relationship that RAP established with the local authorities in the past, and which has worked very successfully to persuade large numbers of people, and it was a persuasion information exercise. On the website last week you said we must now move away from the notion of subsidised bins, which are freely available in every DIY centre, etc., to advice and guidance. What would your advice and guidance be to those hundreds, perhaps thousands of volunteers who are now being told by their local authorities, in my case, the scheme will finish at the end of March? End of story, no rundown, just pull the plug.
It's very tricky, Philip. I'm going to hand it over.
Yes, thank you. I mean, I think, RAP itself stopped its home compost programme in September last year, and we had reached a sort of natural end to our activities. We did put in place, working with local government, an alternative contract for the supply of bins, but I guess what you're talking about is that Lancashire have decided that really, I mean, to be fair to Lancashire, they have distributed a phenomenal number of bins around Lancashire. I almost find it difficult.
80,000.
Yeah, I find it difficult to believe that the market is not pretty saturated in Lancashire. But what I think what I would say to you and to other volunteers is that there are many other things with which people like you can engage the public. And if you're thinking about big society and the ways in which you can get local communities engaged and interested in resource efficiency, whether it be not wasting food, whether it be home composting or recycling, whatever, I think there are many opportunities. And our experience is, talking to other local authorities, that they're very interested in building out from their home compost volunteers and their master composter programs to see whether they can engage groups of volunteers to help spread wider resource efficiency messages. So if I were you, I'd bang on the door in Lancashire. I know the people in Lancashire very well. I'm sure they won't mind me saying this. Go bang on the door and say, is there something else we could do for you as well as this? I think you may find a ready reception.
We can only hope so.
Can I add something on the general point? We do think it's important as an organisation that we should at times decide to move on from something. If we have engendered sufficient interest demonstrated in change of behaviour, then probably we can use the government money we have better on something else than rattling on for the last 10% of the audience. And home composting is an area where we did feel we'd done a great deal and there wasn't so much more to do. I think in future, with less money, of course, predictably to use, we're going to have to be very selective and make sure we don't spread ourselves too thin, but that we hit where we can get the most effect.
Any final questions? Looks as though we may have dried up a bit on the question front.
Can I just add one thing, Liz? I'm not sure many in the audience would know. Perhaps as chairman, you think to say. I think I've only been involved with RAP for 2.5 years, but I believe RAP is 10 years old later this month. So we haven't been going that long. First 10 years, all done. But we're now going to be pretty agile as to where we go on to. So I think many people feel that RAP has probably been around for longer than that. It's maybe been a long 10 years for all of us. But that is just an interesting little perhaps comment to finish on today.
Thank you. All right, well, I think it just leaves me to conclude then. This was all about having a dialogue, talking about resource efficiency, how it can benefit businesses and how it can benefit us as the UK. We do have this, I hope, a shared vision of trying to get to zero waste. It is something that we all need to work on together, and partnership is really key to that. And I really do want to keep the conversation going after today. I meant what I said earlier about the fact that this is about doing things together, and we need to hear from you about things that we should be doing differently, things we can do better, things we get wrong. Because if we don't find out about what we do wrong, then we can't change it and get it right in the future. So we will email you after today to get any feedback that you've got and any comments. But I look forward to working with all of you in the future and especially over the coming year. So thank you very much for coming today and have a safe journey home. Thank you.